I am Clait Braun. I represent the Colorado Division of Wildlife, and I'd like to visit with you initially here about historic and present distribution status of sage grouse across the West. Can you hear me well, or do I need to talk right to the mic? Yes? In the mic. I see that. All kinds of fancy gadgets here. Do we have a pointer? Before I get started, I'd like to make some general comments that the information that you're going to be hearing, at least from me today, has been derived from a number of different sources. Most important is the Western State Sage Grouse Technical Committee, which is a grandchild of the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. We meet every 2 years at various locations. Much of the information that I will be presenting is from those people who have been involved with that over the last 25, 30 years that I've been associated with it also. So with that, I think we'll hit the lights, turn on the projector.
So do you want a laser pointer or a mechanic?
There's two laser pointers right here.
Here's a mechanic.
This way I can beat off the people. This won't always be in focus me up here, so I hope that if it's not in focus in the back, that someone will help the projector make that happen. I do want to make the point that sage grouse occur in the sagebrush type, obviously, and they use leks. This particular slide is to indicate that there are essentially 2 hens for every male in a breeding population. That's very important to keep in mind when you start looking at population trends, because we count males, and also in terms of looking at population size, because most population estimates are based on the counts of males present on strutting grounds. And for those of you who can't see up here, there are these little gray blobs alongside the males, and those are hens. And I think there are about 10 of them, at least in this particular shot. In looking at sage grouse distribution, they only occur in North America, only in western North America. One time they occurred in Canada, and they still occur in Canada, in Alberta and Saskatchewan. One time they occurred as far south as Arizona and New Mexico. They don't occur in either one of those states anymore. They also occurred as far east as Kansas, Oklahoma, and north into Nebraska, and of course the western edge of South Dakota and also North Dakota. So this is the historic distribution of sage grouse in North America. If I can make the projector work, I'll be in great shape. This is the present distribution, looking at it in a general fashion, with the states and provinces where sage grouse no longer occur are identified. The red pieces that you see indicate that sage grouse are now absent in 5 states and 1 Canadian province, British Columbia, for example. And so you see little red dots indicating that some of these places no longer have sage grouse anymore. At one time, we thought we had 1 sage grouse and 2 different races, subspecies, so to speak, of sage grouse. In looking at it now, we now know that we have 2 species of sage grouse and at least 2 subspecies of sage grouse are presently recognized. There are some problems with the genetics, which I will mention just very briefly in passing. To get us to the new terminology, we have the northern sage grouse, which is the large-bodied form. These males weigh up to 7 pounds. And we have the Gunnison sage grouse, the small-bodied form, which occurs only in Colorado and in southeast Utah. Small-bodied males weigh up to 4 pounds. There's about a third of a difference in the size of the larger-bodied birds and the small-bodied birds. But the Gunnison sage grouse is in the process of being described, and it will be accepted by the AOU, American Ornithological Union, as a new species of grouse. In looking very briefly at the so-called western sage grouse, we have 2 races of the large-bodied sage grouse, the eastern and western race of sage grouse. The western race theoretically occurred in Washington, Oregon, and into California. That line somehow occurred across southeastern Oregon. We have looked at the genetics of the situation, and the conclusion is that there's a tremendous amount of variation in size and a tremendous variation in genetic material within Oregon, within the same location and among locations in Oregon. The gist of the story, based on DNA and also morphological measures, are that there is no western sage grouse. It very likely was not a true subspecies at one time, or if it was, it certainly is no longer an identifiable subspecies. And I won't get into all the various haplotypes that are mentioned here. This is mitochondrial DNA. I would encourage people to talk to Dr. Tom Quinn, University of Denver, actually, who's done the work with the DNA with the Oregon situation. But in passing, we don't need to get too excited about the, quote, western race versus the eastern race, because it does not appear to be supported by actual data. We want to talk about the changes in distribution and then the apparent status of sage grouse across western North America. Using Colorado as an example, Colorado doesn't come in two pieces, incidentally. I arbitrarily did this with a computer to show that where the northern, the large-bodied sage grouse and the smaller Gunnison sage grouse split out. And it's not completely correct. But historically, in Colorado, we had a very fragmented population, a fragmented habitat, fragmented populations of sage grouse. This is what we thought we had in about 1900 in Colorado, with the red being the various populations and the distribution of both sagebrush and sage grouse in Colorado. This is presently what we have in Colorado. There's been a marked decrease in the distribution of both sagebrush and in sage grouse across much of Colorado. And again, you'll see that there's more sagebrush and sage grouse in the northern part of the state and not as much in the southern part of the state. And for those of you who want to know exactly where the Gunnison sage grouse occurs, where its stronghold, so to speak, the Gunnison Basin. So in looking just at Colorado data, we can conclude very nicely that there's been a marked decrease in the distribution of sage grouse within Colorado, both from the historic level to today's present level. In looking at other states, I have this in a variety of different forms. Let me get a glass of water, Jack. This is North Dakota. The red indicates that the counties where sage grouse no longer occur in North Dakota. Oregon, the red counties no longer have sage grouse. There's a few question marks there. And the purple here indicates where the sage grouse presently occur. There's a light blue line in there which indicates the present distribution of sage grouse within Oregon.
So look at they're down in this lower corner.
Yeah. The question was, they're down in this lower corner, and yes, that's true. Southeastern Oregon, this is the area where sage grouse occur, primarily within this blue line. There are a few stragglers here and there, and that's why the question marks occur as to whether those are still viable populations, which we'll talk about later. Other states, happens to be Utah. At one time, Utah had sage grouse in every county. Big sagebrush occurred in every county, and that essentially determined where sage grouse occurred within Utah, and so all the counties in Utah had sage grouse. At the present time, this is where sage grouse occur in Utah, and some of these populations are becoming very small. Some of them are disappearing. The Gunnison sage grouse in Utah only occurred in San Juan County. San Juan County is right here to the extreme southeast. The one population at Monticello, Monticello is this population, is still there. The population at LaSalle is no longer present in Utah. And so there's been a reduction in sage grouse range within Utah. Looking at Washington, and Mike Schroeder will eventually tell you more about Washington, there's been a marked reduction in the sage grouse distribution also in Washington, very similar to the other states, and more so than what this particular slide actually depicts. There is good news. This is Wyoming, 1954, based on Patterson's work in Wyoming. Sage grouse also occur in every county in Wyoming. In 1954, I think you can see that. 1994, the sage grouse are still there. This is one of the core states, and we'll be talking about secure populations in core states. Certainly Wyoming is among the core states and with secure populations. So I think that we can very clearly say that it would appear that the distribution of sage grouse has markedly declined across the range of the species in western North America. Further, this decline has been aggravated further by fragmentation of populations, which is leading to some results we hadn't foreseen. But we also have the problem that the status of the sage grouse within these various locations has also changed. There has been apparent declines, apparent decreases in the numbers of sage grouse in a number of different areas. And I'll give you some data. Using Nort Park as an example, Nort Park is in Jackson County, Colorado, where we have a long-term data set. You can see that there is a marked decline over time, going back to the early 1960s in Nort Park. And these are males counted per strutting ground in Jackson County, Colorado. The good news is that there's been a slight increase here in the last several years. A number of years ago, Terry Rich, who I think is in the audience, indicated that sage grouse may be cyclic. Some of us declined to agree with him at that time. We are now more inclined to agree with Terry. The problem, though, is that each peak in a cycle, if they are cyclic, tends to be lower than the previous peak. Looking at Moffat County, Colorado data, again, where we have a good data set. These are 1978 through 80 data when the population was very high, to the population data for 1996, 97, 98, 3-year averages. You'll see in the late 1970s we were counting over 2,000 cocks in a prescribed area, and now we're counting 400 and some odd, I believe. The percent decline in Moffat County, Colorado, which is our largest county in terms of sage grouse distribution and at one time abundance, has been roughly 82%. It's a marked decrease. Looking at other states, and we'll give you a brief viewpoint from other states. North Dakota, population is down, long-term data set. South Dakota, population is down. Oregon, population is down. It may have stabilized over here in recent years. Utah, again, the population is down. Some stability in the past several years. Southeast Idaho, which I won't mention much about because I'm here, and we have real experts here from Idaho, which I'm not. But the population would appear to be down in Southeast Idaho. Even central Wyoming, Fremont County, Wyoming, the population is down. So even though Wyoming has a very broad distribution of sage grouse in the state, in its core state, the decline has been marked also. Eastern Montana, we have less data from Montana, but the population is declining. And for those of you who think that things are better north of the border, this is Alberta. Alberta has less than 500 sage grouse left in the whole province. And you can see the long-term decline here. So the point here with these various data sets is that the decline is long-term. There would appear to be a decline no matter how you look at it, and the declines are long-term. Someone asked me to look at it theoretically, and what we had when Lewis and Clark came into the continent and surveyed this part of the world in the 1804, 1805, 1806 period. Sage grouse were first described from Mandan, North Dakota by the Lewis and Clark expedition. They've further refined their observations of sage grouse in Montana. I have no idea how many sage grouse there were historically. This is purely theoretical. I don't know if there are 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, or only 500,000. We don't know that. The old records indicate that there were a lot of sage grouse. They shot them by the wagon load. The sage grouse kept coming for hours to a watering spot. The skies were black with sage grouse. We don't know what that means in terms of numbers, but at one time there were obviously more sage grouse than what we have at the present time. And looking at it theoretically, we know that in 1860s and 1870s that we had a lot of livestock come onto western rangelands with the demise of the migratory buffalo herds, bison. Cows, for the most part, weren't migratory except in the early days when they couldn't keep them behind fences because there were no fences. And so we know that we had marked overuse of western rangelands in the 1860s, 1870s, probably until 1910, although some of the big blizzards in the late 1800s drastically affected the livestock industry in the West. And so we can guess, and that's the important word here, we can guess that there was tremendous overgrazing pressure on western rangelands in the late 1800s, and that had an impact on sage grouse population. And I show that here. And so I show a series of events that have happened. We also know from Hornady's writings in the early 1900s that the advent of the repeating shotgun and vehicles greatly enhanced people's ability to kill sage grouse. And so there was probably a period of overharvest, which I have shown here. Grazing period started here, continued to some extent clear to the present point. Overharvest happened in here, very likely here. But then we also had serious drought periods, and some of the droughts were very serious. In the 1930s, for example, people worried about sage grouse. A lot of hunting seasons were closed at that point. And so we know drought's also one of the factors involved in here. And drought reoccurs at intervals in the West, and it certainly has had major impacts. And so in looking at where we've been, we don't know where we've been other than we had a lot of sage grouse at one time. We now know pretty precisely what we have at the present time, which is down in this neighborhood here. Keep in mind that's theoretical. This is not theoretical. These are based on the best data that we presently have. This is in a paper I gave at the Jackson Hole meeting of the Western directors at their request in July. They wanted to know what's happening with sage grouse. And so I made an estimate of sage grouse numbers in the breeding season based on talking with people and my personal knowledge. And so this is my estimate. It's not the estimate of the Western States Sage Grouse Pet Committee. Some states have no sage grouse. Some states have few sage grouse. Some states have more. If you look at the more down here, excess of 20,000 breeding birds. Montana, Oregon, and Wyoming probably fit within that category. There could be some questions, but I'm not going to talk about that. But there's an excess of 20,000 breeding birds very likely in those states. And then the other states have fewer numbers. And I can speak very knowledgeably about Colorado, which I will do later. So if you add this up, we presently have, in the spring 1998, we probably had an excess of 140,000 sage grouse breeding birds alive. And what the upper limit was is not known, but it certainly wasn't 200,000 birds. I'm not sure where the upper limit was, but we had at least 140,000 breeding birds in 1998. The conclusions here, a couple of important conclusions, that distribution and abundance have changed. There's no doubt about that. Most changes are attributed to us. Some of the natural conditions that sage grouse undergo are very important, and especially drought. And that's essentially where I want to leave this slide. And so in looking at the historic and present status, one time we had more sage grouse. We had sage grouse more widely distributed at the present than we do at the present time. Thank you. I'd be happy to take a few questions and leave it to the next person.
We do have time for this couple of questions.
What would you clarify when you say no natural habitats remain? What do you mean?
There is nothing. The question was, what do I mean when I say no natural habitats remain? There is nothing natural left out there. It's all been impacted. Power lines, fences, livestock, too many elk. Everything has been altered. I don't know of any piece of land in the West that is in natural condition because of fire control, lots of different reasons. Nothing natural left. Yes?
How much does blending reduce the effective population size compared to the total gross population size?
We'll discuss that when we discuss viable populations, but it's substantial. Tom?
Interesting to me, just a comment, if I got your figures right, the total number of grouse that you think exist are fewer than the number that were shot in 1979 in Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming.
You want to be very cautious, Tom, with the harvest data. The harvest data are primarily based on questionnaire surveys, which have been demonstrated, at least in Colorado, to be inflated by 300 to 4,000%. So you want to be cautious there. But on the surface, your statement appears to have some basis. Steve?
Great. Has there been a landscape scale look at habitat in Colorado? We've had the fortune of the Columbia Basin assessment here, and Melanie is part of that.
And Steve?
Fire regime.
Yeah. Steve's question is, have we looked at a landscape type basis on habitat in Colorado? And the answer is yes. We have a PhD student finishing work right now doing habitat modeling and habitat assessment. So yes, we have. I know Idaho has also done the same thing.
Last question.
The graph on cichlid population or changes in Colorado, the increases of the bird, were any of those associated with changes in management of land? Or do you know what those the high country associated with?
Yes and no. There is no easy answer. We have a paper coming out in Conservation Biology in the next issue, Chris Johnson and myself, which will look at some of that and try to tease it apart. It's very clear that there is no one factor that makes the population go up and down. There's multiple factors. Drought is certainly implicated, but when drought happens, other things happen on rangelands also. There's less forage left in certain situations. There's less water. There's less nesting success. A lot of things are implicated, and so I can't point to one management factor. Changes in habitat manipulation, changes in hunting regulation, nothing really tied together well with that.
We better move on. We will have tons of questions and answers tomorrow. I just want to make a pre-announcement.